Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm Robert Winters. Hey, um, so let's see. So what else is happening in good old Cambridge, Massachusetts? Right.
Okay,
Right.
school.
One thing I think I'll say
You go.
right off
Yeah,
the
go
bat.
ahead.
I don't usually follow school department news
Right,
nearly as closely as parents and other interested
right.
parties do.
Yeah.
But I just happened to tune in this past week to a school committee governance committee or something like that. I don't even remember what it was, but they were actually having a discussion about, as it were, about the superintendent question because Kenneth Salim is going to be
Right.
leaving
In
his
June.
job at
Yeah.
the end of the academic
Hmm.
year. And though I suppose they could go, work, lickety split and get themselves a new permanent replacement, the more likely outcome is they go through a big elongated process.
I think so. Yeah.
And then they would still have to have somebody who would be the interim superintendent in
Okay.
the meantime. I mean, or you could get the interim who turns out to be the perfect choice internally, and then just go with that as the permanent superintendent, which would be perfectly okay with me. This notion that somehow
I know.
existing out in the universe is this
Yeah.
perfect candidate.
All the
You
time
know,
and money it takes too. I don't know.
yeah, I'm sorry for being all parochial about this, but I still generally would defer towards bringing in somebody who is pretty familiar with this Cambridge district already.
Right.
And if there was a person within the school department administration who was a really good candidate, who would be up to speed in like
Yep.
a nanosecond,
You got to choose
I
that.
think that would be pretty good
Yeah.
to do. But the problem is that these are political decisions, and they're looking for a mythical beast, who is somehow going to be the great visionary. I don't know that I
Well,
believe in great
how do you,
visionaries.
how do you know they're going to do that?
I don't. Well, it's just that that's what they do in the past. They do the big national search. They hire
Mm.
a search firm. They bring in people who are
But
pretty
these are
good.
different times. I know these are different
I
times.
know, and maybe we can just be a little more
Yeah.
down to earth now.
There's so much more to have to do right now that I think we just need somebody competent
Yeah,
that knows the system and, you
yeah.
know,
No, and I just hope they're good at that. The part I tuned into, as it were, where it was
yeah.
I think it was really a discussion. I didn't know it at first, and then I realized, oh, they are just deciding on an interim person. And they actually, one person, I think it was Aisha Wilson, was pretty said, "Can I just nominate somebody right now, and we can vote on it?" And they said, "Well, yeah, you could do that."
Yeah.
And then people said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait a minute,
Oh,
wait a minute, wait a
yeah.
minute."
Yeah.
People will accuse us of non-transparency and all this and that.
Why? You're doing it
And I,
right out in the open.
I was saying to myself, "Yeah, go for it, girl."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I know of at least two very competent people within the administration who would be just ideal, but they didn't name any names. So I thought, okay, fine. But so now an ad hoc committee will come back with a name. They will ask any person or persons whether
Okay.
they're actually interested, and then they'll come back to the full school committee, and then they'll
All
say,
right.
okay, how about this person? And then they'll probably do a vote. You know, and that could actually happen pretty soon. I don't know.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, and then they'll go through the intergalactic search for the perfect mythical superintendent who will come in with lots of fancy words like, what was the like
I don't know.
innovation agenda?
I don't know what
Remember
they
that,
mean. So
right?
I don't know.
With
I'm
Jeff
just
Hancock.
I just learned a new one. It's not new. Onboarding. Have you heard about that one? You know what onboarding is?
I've heard it, but I forget.
It's something to do with a new employee or a prospective employee, and it's an onboarding appointment. It's basically an interview,
You
but
know,
and it's from the 70s because I had to look
really,
it up because it's now in use. So I don't
there
know.
was a time, some years ago, I must have been hopelessly bored. I started actually going to some school committee meetings up at the
Oh
meeting
wow.
cafeteria at
Yeah.
CRLS.
Yeah.
And that's when I learned something very interesting, which is
Yeah.
that when your person joins the school committee, it takes about a week before you start adopting their own private language that they use
Ah,
there.
okay.
There are terms that outside of them, I would go, what does that even mean?
Oh,
But
so
they
there's a
use
whole
them all the time.
terminology with
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the first place I heard the phrase, we're talking around issues of fill in the blank. You're talking around
oh, I
issues?
bet that's changed though. I bet there's new terminology
Oh,
now.
yeah, definitely. Because, eduspeak is like its own, it's like a burgeoning field now.
Well, yeah, I mean, the diversity, equality. I mean,
How about scaffolding?
Oh, I like that.
I like that
Scaffolding.
one. Yeah, yeah.
Onboarding and scaffolding.
Onboarding and
Voting.
scaffolding. We ought to basically, we should do an entire show where we use nothing but nonsense speak,
Well,
borrowed from actual words used.
oh,
It's,
you know what? There's probably a podcast out there that already does this. I mean, there's
yeah,
so
I mean,
many, yeah,
I think it would be great fun,
or a website.
I mean,
Yeah.
I do have to say, I think maybe this year, if I'm in good mood, I'll maybe think about doing another April 1st edition of
Oh,
Cambridge
that's
Civic
coming
Journal.
up soon.
Yeah, yeah.
Before
So
you know it, it's going
yeah,
to be.
yeah. So maybe we'll do a little bit of that, so that'll
Oh,
be something.
God.
So there was, I guess, since we last did a show, which was on Groundhog Day,
Right.
they did that was the day after a canceled city council meeting, which then
Oh, that's what
occurred
I
the
was
following
confused.
day
Oh, you're right.
on
That's what
February
you're right.
3rd,
That's right. It was on a
right?
Wednesday. Right.
And then we had one 5 days later, last
The
week
8th.
on Monday on the
The 8th.
8th,
Yeah.
and there were some interesting issues that have sort of been floating. One's
Hostile
very small.
architecture.
Well, we can talk a little about that too, but I think one thing I was I kind of got a kick out of was there was a city council order from Denise Simmons wanting to change the name of Fairmont Avenue
Yeah, I saw
because
that.
delivery people were confusing it with
Right.
Fairmont Street. And I thought to myself, if I was a longtime resident of Fairmont Avenue or Fairmont Street for that matter, I don't think I would really want some city councilor just changing my
That's
address on me.
That's
So,
right.
and I thought to myself, well, okay, what's going to happen? So anyway, she then exercised her charter right. And then in the subsequent meeting, withdrew the order as
Right.
if to say, maybe we should talk to people on Fairmont first.
There's a lot of streets that I think that have an avenue or a circle or a street, and
There is a logic to some of them, like Inman Street has Inman Place coming off of it. Austin, there was an Austin Park, I think, which is
okay,
close to where Vale Court is. And that's because it used to come off of Austin Street.
but there's a Walker Street, a Walker Circle, and a Walker Terrace.
Yeah, but they're usually in
They're not all
proximity.
together. Well, one of them isn't, I don't think. So people,
Right.
but the point is, you just can't go there.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so I thought that was sort of a little bit
Yeah.
of comic relief.
Yeah.
They did have another sort of wild day of I called it robotic talk. So I think it was actually started out with a hostile architecture one, but then it became a big discussion about the 11 of 15 Green Street wet shelter that was state funded.
Oh, yeah.
Which has funding which will go to the end of March, I believe.
No,
And
April 30th, I think.
is it April 30th?
Yeah.
And then some people want
April
that the
30th.
city should then pick up the tab and then
Right.
continue that so that we would have two wet shelters when in
Yeah.
fact none of our surrounding towns have any. And
Really?
anyway,
Is
so
that true?
well,
Boston?
Boston, yes, but basically, if you're in Arlington and you have a problem,
You come here.
the alcohol or substance, they just drive them to Cambridge and drop them here.
Mm.
But what happened was it's becoming you've seen it before and we've talked about it before.
Yeah.
It's a new phenomenon of the basically the robots coming up for public comment, reading from a script.
They're all
It
part
happened
of this
during
group, or a lot of them are Harvard students that.
the latest group is part of this it's
Democratic.
Harvard Young Democratic Socialists.
Right, and then there's the right, yeah, but
Yeah,
I've
I
heard
actually-
the same people like almost weekly.
same thing. Well,
Yeah.
I had a kick. What I did was I actually before the meeting.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe what I'll do is I'll actually find this and
Oh,
point
yeah.
it out here.
Yeah.
What I actually did for that meeting was I actually found on a website the exact template for what they were telling public speakers to use.
Oh, this is the rights for housing.
So before the meeting, I actually put up the public comment template on the website a few hours before the meeting. And then much to my delight, during the meeting, I could actually read the very words while they were being spoken at the meeting. And I thought to myself, boy, if that isn't a complete absence of sincerity.
Should accept by, and then the mayor had to keep reminding people these amendments aren't even.
They aren't even before the council, yeah. But the thing is that these people here didn't even know.
I know.
But they just sort of put them all up there.
It's just, I was yelling at the screen because, I mean, I'm all for people but it just seems like you just call out the troops, you take up time. They could have emailed this. You
It's
don't have to speak. It's the same, some of the same, Piper, somebody. I
yeah,
mean, are they going to be voting? Probably, maybe this
some, yeah,
year.
but
It's just annoying. I mean,
well, it's
try to
sort of
get it
like
together, do a
I
group
call it,
thing,
it's like I like to think democracy is a process where people talk to each other. But
Mm,
this is like democracy by the pound. Like, let me generate
yeah.
100 or 500
Let me call
names,
out. I mean, it's really
and
calling
and
out my
yeah,
constituents or
you're
whatever
allowed
they
two
are to
minutes.
do.
So
And
let's see. So you
yeah,
use up your 2 minutes,
I
and if
know.
we run 60 of us together, we can use up 120
Right.
minutes.
Yeah.
It's sort of like we're not actually having arguments. We're just weighing time now, and they're not really contributing a whole lot.
No.
I mean, to their credit, and again, I
Yeah.
have some issues with some of the city councilors, but
Yeah.
there were some councilors like Councilor McGovern who
Mm,
basically, after all the rhetoric, would just come
yeah.
back and just say, well, this is what's actually true,
Yeah.
and completely counter them. And
I
I
know.
kind of wish that could happen a little more ongoing. By the
And
way,
it's
just as one particularly, something one of the people during public comment made, actually several people raised issues about them clearing out a campsite in Central Square
what?
where, it's sort of under the hostility toward problematic people, as
Oh,
if to
that. Oh,
say,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, as if to say, oh, they were just sort of peacefully, toasting marshmallows in front of the Salvation Army building.
Is that
Well,
where it was? You know where it was?
yeah, actually, I happened to come by while they were clearing it out. And then I talked to some of the people a little bit later. What the various public commenters didn't know, but I'll tell them
Yeah.
right now if they're tuning in,
I
was
doubt
when they
it.
cleared it out, there was a carpet, literally a carpet of hypodermic needles, over
Oh,
300
what?
that were cleared out there. There was a clear and
Oh,
present public health danger
okay.
associated with the site. So if people just sort of think,
Yeah.
oh, there's just a few people down on their luck, I'm
Right.
sorry, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. This is a pretty serious matter. And
And these are our residents of Cambridge. And yes, some may be, but
well, a lot of the people who are
yeah,
in these encampments, they're not from here.
I
They come
know.
here
I
because they
know.
know that
You
we're a
can
lot
just
more
sit.
tolerant than
I
most
know.
places.
I
So
know.
it's sort of a safe place. And
I mean,
again, I
yeah.
applaud the tolerance, but
Yeah.
it's an invitation for
I
sort of
know.
continued troubles in many, many ways. So anyway, I don't know what the ultimate goal is, but honestly, anybody who's arguing that somehow we should be very friendly toward people sleeping in
Yeah.
subways and doorways
Sorry. I know.
rather than actually
I
finding
know.
actually
Well,
real
why not?
beds.
I was thinking they're all from Harvard. Some of them actually live in Harvard housing. Why not ask their own university to maybe have, look at all, they must
Oh,
have
they have,
empty
I
dorm
believe
rooms. Are they?
last year they were doing things
Really?
like that, but I honestly don't think this is about solving problems so much as it is about political organizing.
No, I
Trying.
understand that, but they say, let's get the hotels, but why don't they just go to their own, why don't they ask Harvard to house them? I'm
Uh,
not saying they would. I'm just saying it just seems to me like, I don't know. There's empty rooms a lot of places.
you can ask. You can certainly
Right,
ask, and I
right.
think they have been
Maybe
asked.
they have. I don't
I
know.
think
Yeah,
city
yeah.
council have asked the universities to help.
No, but I
But
want
let's
these students.
right, but let's not forget that MIT
Yeah,
turned the whole gymnasium into a COVID
yeah.
center, with beds, cots laid out here, for it actually, these places never ended up getting used.
What about the site on Albany Street? Was that MIT related too?
240 Albany is,
Yeah,
yeah, that's on
that's a
MIT property.
that's a wet shelter, right?
That is a wet shelter.
Yeah.
It was originally trailers at 240 Albany that were
Uh-huh.
located there sort of as a temporary thing. It was never meant to be permanent.
Right.
And
Oh,
then
really? I didn't
then
know
they
that.
then
Oh,
there was some mechanism they were actually going to try and move it to 380 Green Street. Some of
380.
us at the time said,
Oh,
wait a minute, making that a permanent fixture right in the
right,
heart of Central
right.
Square,
Not a good idea.
right over by the post office would
Right.
not be the best thing to
No.
do.
Mm-mm.
So we looked for an alternative. MIT eventually came in, they cut a deal where it was sort of like a swap. We said, we will agree to not only keep it down where it is, but we'll even build the building
Yeah.
for them to house with more beds than were there when it was just trailers.
Yeah.
But we want something for this. And that's when Dock Street and a few other streets in Kendall Square were
Okay.
turned over and
All
sort of
right.
were decommissioned as regular public roads.
Okay.
as a kind of a deal,
Yeah.
So yeah, so this goes back a long ways, but and yeah, 240 Albany is sort of the epicenter of a lot of the crime reports. If somebody gives an address, it's 240 Albany.
But at
Now,
least it's not surrounded by, it's more, I don't know, it's a little more isolated. So
a
it's
little
not,
more isolated,
yeah.
but the
I
thing
mean, I
is
walk by near there almost
the
not
big
every day.
question is, and I think the city can answer this in a good way,
Yeah.
is that what other things are being done to help people who are capable of transitioning away from a substance abuse life toward a better life. I give nothing but applause to all the people and the programs who are actually successfully doing that. But the thing is that if nobody else is doing it and Cambridge wants to host it, basically we're going to always have new clients coming in from all around. And
Why can't we build like a more rooming house type of congregate housing?
well, in a way, this is what the 11 and 15 Green Street facility was supposed to do, but within a few weeks it had had multiple drug overdoses into suicide.
Right. Well, no, obviously you'd
Yeah,
have to have a better structure, but that
you need a
kind of
lot of structure.
housing and also requirements. Maybe you would have to show some kind of connection to Cambridge. You can't just have, I mean, we can't house everybody
I know
that's
it's,
from other,
it's
I mean,
like
I don't know.
I can respect the intention to want to solve
Yeah,
all the world's problems,
right.
but unilateral solutions
Yeah,
on the part of one city
yeah,
doesn't solve problems. And in
yeah,
fact, in some respects, paradoxically, it actually it worsens the problems locally.
right.
If you set up the facility and then
Yeah,
becomes known as the place you go, then
right,
substance abuse people will come to Cambridge. And so we will basically
right. But
we
I
will take
understand.
on the problems of
Right, but
everybody
I'm talking
else.
about a step, not a wet shop. I'm talking about congregate housing for people that have gone through a program that are
You know,
you know,
I would
detox.
love to see more in the way of sort of state funding assisted rooming houses
Yeah,
with
they
staff.
work because
Yeah,
single people are not in a good situation in
no,
this.
that's not. And even Cambridge used to actually have a fair number
Oh
of
yeah,
SROs,
I know.
single
Tim
room
to,
occupancy
Tim
places.
Toomey has brought this up over the years.
Actually,
Yeah.
my house where I'm sitting
Oh
right
yeah,
now, this
yeah.
room
Was
was
a
a room of an
okay.
SRO at one time.
All right.
It was my second floor where I live was 5 rooms of a rooming house.
I bet
Women
a lot
or
of houses, if people looked at their history, they probably were.
yeah, that's
But they
right.
needed workers, and workers had to, yeah.
Well, it's also it wasn't a hot real estate market. It was
Oh,
pre-Kendall Square, and
right.
it was a very different kind of city. And one by one the SROs just sort of disappeared. But it doesn't mean that it's not a bad idea. I mean, I think it could still be made into a pretty good idea, but it does require money and supervision,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can find
Yeah.
ways of doing that,
Yep.
amongst all
Right.
the other great
Right.
initiatives that we actually do.
Right.
Right. And by the way, I think that some of the same people when they were commenting about the Green Street facility, they kept coming back about the hostile
Oh, it
architecture.
was the same group. Yeah.
And then some of the counselors had to say, excuse me, but we already voted on that.
Right.
Okay, can you
Yeah.
move
So
on?
don't talk about
But
that.
the
Yeah.
clue, by the way,
I know.
one of the way I could tell that of the cluelessness of some of the people, and
Yeah.
it is funny to say this because they're supposedly Harvard people, right? Is just how they pronounce the word Cambridge.
Why?
It was Cambridge. I
Really? I
think
didn't. No,
Cambridge, really Cambridge? You just get off the bus? Did you?
I didn't hear. I didn't pay
So
attention to that.
yeah, no, they all, most of them had a kind of a faraway quality
Oh,
to them, I dare say. So, by the way, on the kind of municipal election, not that I want to go into because there's nothing to report. Basically, in the latter months of 2020, there were 4 or 5.
so your list hasn't
Yeah,
changed?
hasn't changed a bit. And I find that curious in a way.
What about the money raised? Do you look at the money?
It's slow. There are a few candidates. The rich are getting richer. So basically, Zondervan and McGovern are packing it in. You know,
Oh,
and readying for the what did they, when we invaded Iraq, one of the times we have to meet them with overwhelming force. So I think that's kind of the plan there, is to basically raise, $70,000 and then basically just try and run over those $20,000 campaigns. That seems to be trending in that direction.
I did notice one of the candidates, Tonya Hicks, also ran for a board
Is it
seat on the
Tanaya, or I think it might be
Tanaya. All right, you're
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Tanaya.
no,
She got a board
which is,
seat on the Cambridgeport neighborhood.
yes, I saw that as well.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what I mean, honestly, this is what anybody who wants to run for political office should have already been doing that for
Local.
a few years. So
Right.
I don't
yeah.
want to see people just doing it so they can say
Sure.
I'm this in time
Right.
for an election. But yeah, really, people
I don't
should
know
be
who
more
I
actively
didn't go to
involved.
that meeting, so I don't know. I didn't
Yeah.
vote.
I mean, some of the other characters, I, at least one person I don't think has been involved in much of anything. Another person has been, but not in any kind of official neighborhood association.
Mhm.
Not neighborhood associations are just one part of the Cambridge civic puzzle,
Right. But
But
usually you should be involved in an issue or something, whatever it is. It could be housing,
you
I
should
don't know.
just be active. I mean, I've
Active.
always said that you can even be active in your church, and to me,
Right.
that's completely valid. It just means
Right.
you're involved. You are part of the, an active member of the community,
Right.
rather than, just a political person who's sort of dropping in
Looking
from,
for a place to, get your
yeah,
views read.
yeah,
Yeah.
just like I'm going to start my career here politically doing this, that I don't like, I want my politics, local politics, to grow organically, you know.
Oh, I like that. That's a good one. I'd like my local politics.
Right.
Uh,
But if somebody just sort of drops in,
mhm.
and barely knows the town, and to me but they're full of ideology, well, that will appeal to some people who vote purely on ideological bases. But to me, that's really not how voters should be voting. They should really understand where a person's coming from and who they are, and their familiarity with things specific to the town that they're actually
What
running.
bothers me is that the candidates that have a link to the universities, either because they went there or they're, like the Harvard Connect, they could get 1,500 people to be registered to vote for them. I mean, you don't need a whole lot to get on that for,
that has been a
That's,
theory that has
yeah.
been known for a long time.
Oh,
Very
yeah,
few people.
Nadeem
Dean
Mazin,
Mazin actually worked it.
Leland
I think
Chung.
Leland Chung actually
Yeah,
capitalized on that
yeah, his
as well.
initial thing.
Years
Yeah.
and years ago, David Clem was a person
Oh,
who
yeah.
was elected. He served one term, but he
Okay.
managed to gather up a quota worth of votes. The difficulty is that you can register people, you get them to sort of promise they'll vote for you, and then you
Yeah.
find out a few weeks after the election, when you're looking at the corrected list of who actually voted,
Yeah.
you realize most of them didn't actually show up and vote.
Is that true?
That's how it used to be. I think that's not
Not
so much the
not
truth
with all,
anymore.
I mean, social media and the pressure, it's just like
No,
there all the time.
I think you can actually do much more effective
Oh,
social media campaigns
oh
now,
yeah,
and
than you could 10 years ago.
you
Even.
can whip up the voter discipline as well to actually show up.
Oh, look at 74 million people voted for Trump. That didn't happen out of nowhere.
Yeah, I know.
I know. I brought his name up again. I am sorry.
It's time to move on.
By the
That's
way,
right.
it is 100 million doses in 100 days. I looked
100
it up.
million doses in 100
Yeah,
days. That's
with shots
great,
already.
and let's keep
I
it
don't know if
going,
you,
man. Keep
yeah,
it
we'll
going.
see. When's his 100?
My number will come up one of these days. I haven't
Yeah.
even thought about how to do it these days. I wouldn't even know how to
I'm
begin.
hoping that my health system lets me know. I think they will. Are you part of a health system?
In principle, but I've
Oh,
signed on. I don't know who
oh,
they are. I don't know who my primary care
well,
physician
good
is. I
luck.
don't
Go
know
to
anything.
Fenway. You'll love it. Sign up at Fenway.
I want to go to Fenway for a baseball game. Thank you very much.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe you can buy a ticket and get your shot at the same time.
Now there's a nice
But,
promotion.
see there,
There's a good idea.
that is a good idea.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
by the time we get them going, they might be selling tickets because it's March. It'll be in March probably when
Yeah.
they let us get them.
Yeah, no, it could be coming. It's absolutely sure. But so anyways, that's what's coming.
Yeah.
By the way, there was one other thing I'll just mention because I only have
Okay.
partial information. I was a little curious. The city manager appointed this task force on the future of public safety.
Oh, right. That was
And
a while ago.
it kind of a
Yeah.
sketchy bunch of appointments, in
Well,
my humble opinion.
not
But
all
but,
of them,
but then
yeah.
they said, oh, we will be starting to meet in January. And then I,
Oh,
well, okay, I'm looking for a notice. I'm looking for nothing, notice,
nothing.
nothing.
They haven't met
I
yet.
finally, I sent a message to the city saying like, actually the police department. I said, is this task force actually meeting? And they said, oh, they met on February 2nd. I go, well, that's nice to know, like
Oh,
2 weeks later. But he's, again, there was not a single listing. Like if I wanted to sort of tune in, because it had to be in Zoom, right? Uh,
well, but
I
are
didn't,
task force meetings public? Like
I don't know if they are or aren't, but this is co-chaired by 2 city councilors. So
it is?
if
Oh,
it's not accessible by the public, it damn well ought to be when you're starting to
oh,
put elected officials in there as
I didn't know it
co-chairs.
was co-chaired by city council.
Yes, yes. So I expect I'm going to be a little pushy about this one
Good,
because
good.
I wanted to
Me too.
monitor it because I'm a
Yeah,
little worried that uh,
yeah,
I mean I'm all for reforming what needs to be reformed, but
right.
I am not a big fan of just like let's
Rip off.
revolutionize the
Yeah,
Cambridge Police Department because
right,
of perceptions about what's happened or should have
right.
happened in cities far away.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm gonna ride herd on this a little bit. And
Okay.
so anyway, so they did meet on February 2nd. If there is
Oh,
a recording, I'll find out about it. And if
let
there's a
me know.
meeting, I
Yeah.
want to actually at least tune in. I don't know if I'll say
Well,
much of anything, but
put that on your website so that
if
people
I
can.
yeah,
Okay.
if I find out about it, then
All
I'll
right.
sort of do that. So
Uh,
anyway, that's many other things coming up. So I said there is this meeting tomorrow. Oh, there's a meeting on if you're interested in campaign finance
yeah.
limits, there's an
Oh,
ordinance committee
oh,
happening
yeah.
February 24th at 5
Oh,
o'clock,
okay.
right? So, and real estate
Wonderful.
transfer fee is not until March 10th, so that's a topic
Okay.
for another day. So
And our next show will be March 2nd, first Tuesday in March.
yeah, that
Okay.
sounds great. So
And we're going to sign
anyway,
off in a few
that's it.
seconds.
So I'll see you
Bye.
next time on Cambridge Inside
Get
Out.
healthy.